Welcome back. This is Excel video 289. It's helping a group today put their appointments into a pivot table. We were looking at future appointments and trying to decide which doctors were busy when. If we could figure out which kind of doctors were seeing new patients, then we could start to look at cash flow and forecasting and things like that. When you're ready to look at your appointments in a pivot table, I'd love to help you. I kind of cheated and skipped ahead to a different data set that we're going to go to a little later in this series. So if you're following along, I apologize. I'm going to sneak this evaluation and management pivot table in here just to show you what you can do with a new tool in Excel called Slicers. It's new in Excel 2010. And what I have here is almost 12,000 E&M visits that came through. So I've got, for my docs and a bunch of different locations, I just pulled the last 12,000 E&M visits, and here they are, and we're going to analyze them. The way we're going to analyze them is with this Slicer tool. From the Pivot Table Options menu, I'm going to insert Slicer. From Insert Slicer, what I can do is pick. You'll notice these are the fields that are over here in my Pivot Table field list. So I'm going to pick city and state and doctor. And what I'm going to try to do is understand these 12,000 visits by insurance company by looking at, let's put state and city and doctor. Let's slide these over maybe just a little bit more so you can see them. We'll worry about how to format slicers in the next Excel video. What I want to do today is just show you what slicers are. Slicers are a visual way to manually filter data. So for example, if I wanted to see this insurance visits for just Medicare, for example, what I can do, let me say that again. Insurance visits for all of these insurance companies for just one doctor. There we go. For just Dr. Book, what I can do is click Dr. Book. And now notice what happened. It unselected all of my other docs. And it says, okay, for Dr. Book, of those 12,000 visits, 1,979 are his. And you can see that Aetna is sending a bunch, is the main carrier for Dr. Book's patients. So we can click here and see Dr. Note, and Aetna is still big. You can see Coventry and Humana are also big for Dr. Note, and there's Dr. Sky. See how I'm manually filtering the doctors? And watch what happens over here. It's just the same as if I pick Dr. Cross. Notice how Dr. Cross lights up and these go back. See how the manual filters here are linked to these manual filters. And so it's very easy to look at one and not have to go to this menu. Watch what happens when I hold down the Control key and get Dr. Ribbon. Excel in the report filter area will just show multiple items. If I only have one, it shows Dr. Ribbon. As soon as I have more than one, it says multiple items, and you have to hover over it to try to figure out, okay, which docs am I filtering? Not if you're using slicers. If you're using slicers, what will happen is Dr. Cross and Dr. Ribbon are very obviously the ones chosen here, and if I hold down Control and do Dr. Sky, see now I've got those multiple items here, but I don't have to click through and see it. I can just see it visually. I can also just drag to select those four docs. I can hold down Shift to, whoops, that was Control, sorry. I can hold down Shift to select multiple docs at a time, or Control will let me do this. See how easy it is to manually filter the data. And when you're done, rather than having to come in here and click All and clear the filter, this guy right here will clear the filter, and now I'm back to my 12,000. So the first thing I want to show you about slicers is it's an easy way to manually filter data. The second thing is when you do manually filter data, then what you can do is you can immediately see over here, and if I choose 3, rather than have multiple items, I can immediately look over here and see Atlanta, Greenville, and Louisville. Last thing I want to show you about slicers in today's video is look what happened when I picked Atlanta and Greenville and Louisville. Watch the state slicer over here. See how Georgia and Kentucky and South Carolina popped up? And if I take Greenville off the list and do Atlanta and Louisville again, see now I've just got Georgia and Kentucky. A slicer can help you by graying out items that don't appear in your data. And obviously, because I have Atlanta, I'm only going to get Georgia as a state. If I have Louisville, I only have Kentucky. So I don't have any of these other states. But you can easily see if you're looking for something and you start to filter. As soon as they gray out, you know that there is none of this data in, or none of these fields, let's say it that way, in this data. without having to look through and look and say, hey, is there any District of Columbia, is there any North Carolina data in here? You don't have to look. Now, it's obvious from Atlanta and Georgia and Louisville and Kentucky, but if you had other unrelated data sets, as soon as it grays out, you can tell at a glance that there's no data in the pivot table without having to filter your way through and see. So those are some of the advantages of using slicers in a pivot table. They're new in 2010. They won't work if you, even though it's an XLSX file, they won't work in Excel 2007. But they're a great way to visually filter the data without having to teach a user how to go in here and click. Rather than have to say, oh, you want to add Charlotte, do it that way. It's much easier to say, no, you can add Memphis by doing this. And now it's in the list. Much easier for new users to pivot tables to filter the data they want without having to learn all about manual filters and label filters and value filters and top 10 and everything else that we've been talking about over the past couple of Excel videos. That's kind of part one of slicers. Stay tuned next time. I want to show you a little bit more about them. Thanks for watching.